Please rise for the posting of the colors and the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic of which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
So I want to welcome everyone to the Linden Community Center. My name is Jennifer Adair, and I am the proud chair of the North Linden Area Commission. And I am also a commissioner on the Recreation and Parks Commission. So thank you so much for joining us in our community today. We are very excited to be up here to introduce the third community conversation in this important series that our city and our mayor have put on. This conversation is very near and dear to my heart as we will talk about education and youth programming. There can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats its children. Nelson Mandela. And I think in the soul of Columbus, it is our children. And that is proven every day by the impact that this city and you make in our children's lives. From birth to graduation, from Celebrate One to Project 89 with Lyndon McKinley, from feeding our kids to our Parks and Rec strawberry food truck, to those working in our recreation centers helping our kids be healthy and happy. Our kids are our soul. We have so many great programs. We have so many great things that our city is doing. But we as a community really need to push it to the next level. We need a holistic approach. We need the ability to tie these wonderful programs together and do positive handoffs of our kids from one program to the next. We need this linkage to ensure that our next generation continues to grow healthy and strong and become our leaders. I have a challenge for all of you here today, and all of you at home watching. She's 7. And that is to be a grown-up in a kid's life. To be someone a kid can count on. Participate in one of our programs and activities and be that mentor, be that light, be that grown-up who will come and give our kids the experience they need to be our future leaders. I'm very excited for this conversation. I know we're going to learn a lot, and we just want to welcome you to our community. So thank you so much, and I'd like to introduce Pastor Charles Tatum from the Good Shepherd Baptist Church.
Those who believe, let us pray. Our Father and our God, we come this evening as humbly as we know how. We invoke that your Spirit be in this place. Lord, we pray today for change. Change in the way we view things, oh Lord, and change in the way that our community views themselves. We pray for change today, that those who are in positions of power, Lord, and those of us who are on the front lines might be able to come together and bring about the desired change that is needed for our community. We pray for change today, Lord, that those who look at our area, our community here in the Linden area, might look at us through different lenses, Lord, and see us as a group of people, oh Heavenly Father, who are desiring to do better. So now, Lord, please bless everything that may be said and done today, and that in everything we do, you might get glory and we might make you smile. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. What a great audience. I would like to introduce myself by greeting in my language. We call it Namaste. Namaste, everyone. Namaste means, my soul recognizes your soul. I honor the light, love, beauty, truth, and kindness within us. In sharing these things, there is no distance and there is no difference between us. We are same, we are one. Hello, everyone. My name is Sudarshan Peck. You can call me Shud. It's a little bit of a long name. I'm a former refugee from Bhutan, and now I'm a Bhutanese American, and Columbus is my home. I have been in Ohio since 2010. That's the first time when I came to the United States, and I come to Columbus in 2014 for my studies at Ohio State University. I'm an Ohio State graduate. Now I'm a proud Buckeye. Thank you. Currently, I'm working as a director at the Bhutanese Nepali Community Center. We call it BNCC. And BNCC is a community-based ethnic organization which was led by civic-minded community leaders, and it was started in 2009. Actually, the refugee resettlement process, Bhutanese refugee resettlement process started in 2008. So BNCC was started in 2009. We have been providing, so BNCC have been providing culturally responsive services to the growing Bhutanese Nepali population in Central Ohio. As a new population in Central Ohio, community-based programs have been vital components of our immigrant experiences. These programs have helped us understand the inner working of these services and program delivered by different providers in the city. And most importantly, the community-based ethnic program also bridges the gap between communities and mainstream service providers. One area that is critically important for us is the area of health, including mental health. The community-based programs have helped us work with families who are learning to understand new knowledge about health issues, ranging from health behavior to health policies. It has also helped us build bridges in the areas of affordable housing, sorry, I have an accent and sometimes I slip through, and how communities can work with agencies and neighborhood to create safe, healthy environment for community members, particularly children and elders. Today, given the opportunities available in Columbus, if you travel down to the Morse Road area, we famously call Morse Road Corridor, it is very common to see immigrant-run businesses that are not only enriching the city with diverse food and culture, but they are also providing many employment opportunities to the people of Central Ohio. Under the leadership of Mayor Ganther, the city of Columbus was named the America's Opportunity City. Mayor Ganther is working tirelessly to promote opportunities for every person in every neighborhood. Yes, it is. Columbus is the city of opportunities. As a Bhutanese Nepali myself, Bhutanese Nepali population in Columbus is the second largest refugee population and the largest Bhutanese population anywhere outside Bhutan. This population is making Central Ohio their home because of the social, economic possibilities they see to their future and their children's future. As a refugee myself, or former refugee myself, I would proudly call myself a refugee for so many reasons. I see a lot of potential in our young people who are doing everything they can to become the future of Columbus. In days to come, we anticipate many opportunities to engage this discussion in making Columbus a cohesive city. On behalf of all immigrants, refugee population in Columbus, we thank the mayor for recognizing the richness of immigrant experiences and the contribution made by the community in Central Ohio. With deepest gratitude and appreciation from all the new American population in Columbus, I would like to present to you Mayor Andrew J. Ganther. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Thank you, Sudarshan, for that kind introduction, and good evening to everyone here that's joined us. We are thrilled to be starting our third State of Columbus Neighborhood Conversation. We got to give it up for West High School. Wasn't that ROTC awesome for the posting of the colors? I'm grateful for West. And I don't know about you, but I'm a little partial to Jen Adair and the amazing Vila. Thank you for helping us get started here tonight, and for that great welcome to Linden. And thank you to Pastor Tatum for your invocation and for getting us started here tonight. I'd also like to thank Carlos Pace. Now, I don't think he's in the room because he's working. There he is, Mr. Pace, the director here at our Recreation Center. One of our best, somebody who believes passionately and strongly in the power of young people, and we appreciate everything he's doing. And I'd like to thank our sign language interpreter tonight, Royce Carpenter, who will be helping to make sure we can communicate to everybody. So just a quick note and thank yous to our elected officials that have joined us here tonight. From Columbus City Council, I know that President Shannon Hardin is here, President Pro Tem Michael Stinziano, Councilmember Elizabeth Brown, Mitch Brown, as well as Councilmember Jiza Page, Emmanuel Remy, and Priscilla Tyson. Let's give them a round of applause. I know our City Auditor, Megan Kilgore, State Senator Charlita Tavares, and State Representative Bernadine Kennedy Kent are here. Thank you for being here and joining us here tonight. And now the most dangerous part of the night, scanning the room to make sure I haven't missed any elected officials that have joined us. If so, please raise your hand so I can recognize you. But appreciate everybody being here tonight. I also want to thank my cabinet and staff for putting together a different approach to the usual State of the City address. Tonight, I would specifically like to thank our Director of Recreation and Parks, Tony Collins, and our Director of Education, Rhonda Johnson. I want to thank, yes. And I want to thank each of you for coming out tonight, and those of you that are watching us via live stream. In last year's State of the City address, I laid out ambitious plans for our city to have a tangible, long-lasting impact on the lives of our residents. We set clear goals to ensure that every family in every neighborhood is sharing in the success that is Columbus. This was not a one-year agenda, but a multi-year plan. And this plan cannot be accomplished without our community partners. I'm excited to launch the third of 5 topic-specific neighborhood conversations that will allow us to have a meaningful discussion about our collective priorities. We will talk about what is working well and explore where there are more opportunities for us to collaborate even more effectively. Tonight, we're focused on pre-kindergarten education and recreation and parks, both of which play a vital role in the opportunities for every child in every neighborhood to grow and thrive in this community. I wanted to take these conversations out into the neighborhoods. So we held our first conversation on the south side, and last week we were on the hilltop. We picked this location in Linden tonight for a reason. We're right next door to the new Linden Early Childhood Education Center, the first of its kind in our city. You'll hear more about this later in our program. And we are in the process of designing a new center for this space, more than just a new recreation center, more than just a new building, but the first of our city's 11 centers of opportunity. This Center for Opportunity will offer enhanced youth and family development programming with 6 core services: job and career placement, character and leadership, academic enrichment, food access, intervention strategies, health and wellness. Each of our centers for opportunity will not require new buildings, but we know this one in this neighborhood does. So we've been working with the community to learn more about what they would like to have in this center. Our proposal includes not just a new recreation center, but it will have a gym, library, classrooms, and a demonstration kitchen. But it'll also have a park with walkways, improved tennis and basketball courts, and a playground designed for our youngest citizens. Construction will begin next year, and I know that Linden is pumped about the future. At last week's neighborhood conversation, we talked about getting more of our babies to their first birthdays and beyond through the efforts of the entire community through Celebrate One. So tonight I want to talk a little bit about the years that follow those first birthdays. 90% of a child's brain development occurs before they are 5 years old. Studies show that children who receive high-quality early childhood education are ready for kindergarten and beyond. Children who receive high-quality pre-K education are better educated, earn more, and are more likely to become homeowners in our neighborhoods. Quality pre-K education is especially beneficial for dual language learners, children of our growing new American population. Pre-K helps in both learning English and in other academics. We want to make high-quality early childhood education available to the 12,000 four-year-olds who live in our city, because we know that doing so will have a dramatic and positive effect on the future of our community. We've made some progress. Through Early Start Columbus, we have worked collaboratively with the state of Ohio, Columbus City Schools, and a network of community-based providers to serve approximately 2,500 Columbus children over the past 4 years. The Early Start Columbus program for pre-K providers has seen increases in literacy and math in students who attend these programs. We know the Hilltop has the lowest rate of children enrolled in high-quality pre-K than anywhere else in the city. So last year, I convened the Hilltop Early Childhood Partnership to explore the challenges and present solutions to help us achieve our goal of doubling the number of children enrolled in high-quality pre-K on the Hilltop by 2020. Jane Leach, the chair of the committee, and one of tonight's panelists will talk more about this work, the committee's recommendations, and our next steps in helping us reach our goal. But you know, success in pre-K must be a multi-pronged approach. We need high-quality centers and teachers prepared to help teach and lead our children. One center that moved from 2 to 3 stars in the state's Step Up to Quality rating system was the Glenwood Center for Early Child Education in Valley View, under the direction of Tina Krauskop. One of the steps they had to take was to increase the number of teachers with a Child Development Associate Certificate. I'm happy to report that one of her teachers, Michelle Bird, who I visited in the classroom last fall, received her Child Development Associate Certificate through an accelerated program between the city and Columbus State Community College. Michelle is one of the 150 teachers who completed the program in 2017. I want to congratulate Tina and Michelle and also offer my thanks to Dr. David Harrison, president of Columbus State Community College. Will you all still please stand so that I can recognize you? Thank you for all your incredible work in opening up more opportunities for young people in our community. I also want to recognize the Ohio State University, who is helping us to add more teachers by providing scholarships for bachelor's degrees to students who are currently already working in early childhood education in our community. This spring, we will have our very first graduate from the program, By the fall, we'll have a total of 40 students enrolled. We know having quality teachers in the earliest years of life can make such a tremendous impact on our young people. We know learning happens both in and out of the classroom. The Department of Recreation and Parks also plays a key role in the physical and mental well-being of all of our residents by providing specific programs to develop our youth during time when they are not in the classroom. From ensuring our kids have nutritious summer meals to after-school programs and everything from swimming to arts classes, Recreation Parks is about so much more than just having fun. Samantha Harris became involved with the APPS program, Applications for Purpose, Pride, and Success, after moving to Fort Hays High School for her senior year. Her intervention specialist, Nakia Johnson, told us she had been hanging out with the wrong people and struggling with the death of her mother after an illness. But Sam was smart and a hard worker, at times holding down 2 jobs while attending school. So with the support of her intervention specialists, Sam made the decision toward a better life and is now enrolled at Columbus State. Sam and Nakia, will you please stand so we can recognize you? APPS has formed excellent relationships with Columbus City schools, including Linden, McKinley, as well as Northland, Beechcroft, Mifflin, Briggs, and West High schools. They work closely with students, counselors, and safety personnel, both during during school hours, and after-school events, like football and basketball games. A big part of the program is based on making positive decisions, having good attendance, and setting and achieving goals for graduation and beyond, just like Sam. We need partners in all this important work. And tonight you'll hear from people and organizations who are helping us reach our goals. So before I introduce our panelists, I want to tell you a little bit about how this evening will work. So for the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to ask the panel some questions, and then it's your turn. You should all have a card on your seat. If you have a question, fill out the card, and we'll gather the questions and get to as many as time allows. And if you're watching from home, post your question online. We will likely not get to every question, but if you include your contact information, my team will get back to you with more information and detail. So now let me introduce our esteemed panel. Our first member of the panel, Melissa Anderson Johnson, who is the center manager at Starting Point Learning Center. Rebecca Asmo, the CEO of Boys and Girls Clubs of Columbus. Brenda Fields, who is the supervisor of Capital Kids Education Program with our Department of Recreation and Parks. Steve Ives, the president and CEO of the YMCA. Jane Leach, the founder of Hilltop Preschool. And Candace Nispeka, who is the principal of Linden Park Early Childhood Center. Welcome. So, at our neighborhood conversation last week, thank you all, by the way, for joining us here tonight and being willing to share with the community some of your insights, particularly into early childhood education and youth programming and the need for additional programming and resources in the community. So we discussed how programs last week, programs like Celebrate One are working to get babies to their first birthdays. We know that successful outcomes in our infant mortality efforts can help to inform our early childhood education initiatives. So when thinking about the first years of a child's life, maybe we'll start with Jane here. Why is the focus on early learning so important? Some folks really focus on kindergarten readiness and don't think about it until that child might be 3 or 4. But talk about why those earliest years are so important as well.
I would be happy to answer that question. It's critically important that we invest in the lives of young children, before age of 5, for some of the reasons you mentioned in your opening remarks. In the early years, children's brains develop at a massively fast rate. And it's really important to capitalize on that learning opportunity, the opportunity to support that healthy brain development. Further, when we invest in the lives of young children, we help them realize their full potential, which is critically important to their todays and the rest of their lives, actually. And then we also know, that's anecdotally, we can see it in the children's lives, but there's every bit of evidence in research that supports the fact that when we invest in the lives of young children, we change the trajectory of their lives. Fewer number of children qualify for special education services. More children graduate from high school. More as they become adults. There's greater job satisfaction, employment, and happiness in a job. So is investing in young children critically important? Yes, sir, it is.
So Candace, early childhood education is not cheap. There are a number of us that believe that there's a huge return on investment. But can you speak to what the data supports as far as the impact and the positive contributions that high quality early learning has on a young person's trajectory?
Sure. I was going to, but Jane took my answers. So, thanks.
You're very welcome, friend.
Right. Just to kind of seriously add on to a little bit of what you said in your opening and what Jane mentioned, some of the research just from high scope Perry preschool study, even deep down to students who were in a high quality pre-K program earned up to $2,000 more a month than those were not. So if you're thinking of actual hardcore dollars, that's one of the statistics that you can pull from that study. I think Jane said more likely to graduate from high school, to own homes, and even there's proof that students in high quality pre-K programs will have longer marriages. So I don't know, that might be good or bad, depending. Just put that out there. But one of the pieces of data that we have, that we've been looking at recently with Columbus City Schools, and obviously that drills it down from a national study down to right here in our world, in our land, and something that's obviously close to my heart, after all these years in the district, we just compiled this data to tell us that in our KRA is a kindergarten readiness assessment, so that's one of the tests we use to look at how our children are doing in kindergarten. In 16-17, our students enrolled in Columbus City Pre-K in 15-16 scored 59%, on track, met the on-track standard on the KRA. And now this past year, which means our students who enrolled in CCS Pre-K in 16-17, they're in kindergarten right now. 60% of the students enrolled in one of our CCS Pre-K classrooms met the on-track standard based on the KRA, and that's a 12.47% higher than the district average for students who were not enrolled in one of our programs.
That's
You can
great
clap.
progress.
That's pretty good. Sorry, we were really excited.
So Melissa, there's a phrase, school starts at 4, but education starts at birth. So we've touched on this a little bit already, but as you think about, the Celebrate One work that we start even pre-birth with Expecting Mom, higher and better birth outcomes, that transition into those early years when we want kids celebrating first birthdays, striving in those early years of life, and getting ready for kindergarten. Talk about that span from particularly birth to when they show up for preschool.
Absolutely. We do know the research that from 0 to 5, most of the brain development happens there, but there's even a larger percentage where from 0 to 3, the brain development is happening more than even up to 5 years old. So knowing that information, we really have to challenge ourselves to think about how we can support early learning programs to help young children from 0 to 3 as well, especially in our most at-risk communities. So in our program, we start from 0 or 6 weeks to 5 years old. And so having that time with them and seeing them even progress into pre-K, you can see their development even higher than starting just at 4.
Really, the parents and caregivers for that infant are some of the first most important teachers in equipping and working with parents who may have grown up in a different circumstance and situation than you and I might have grown up in. So important. So Rebecca, Brenda, and Steve, talk a little bit about the work of Boys and Girls Club, Capital Kids, the Y, and maybe share a few examples about what you're seeing in your centers and the families that you're working with that really speaks to the importance of early investment in education and development and the work that you're doing with them once they've started school.
Okay. So with funding from the Capital Kids program, in part, we operate, actually by the end of this year, we'll have 11 Boys and Girls Clubs in Columbus. So the city has been a very important and long-time investor in a lot of different ways in the services that we provide for kids. So our clubs are open during the school year, Monday through Friday till 8 p.m., and we're open all day during the summer. And we charge our club members $5 per year. And, you know, we're located in many of the neighborhoods. Actually, last week's two of our State of the City conversations have been in Boys and Girls Club spaces. So early learning is so important. Nobody can argue that. What I was excited to see about today's conversation is that it wasn't just early learning isolated, but it was early learning as part of a broader continuum of youth development for young people in our city. So we can invest all the money in the world in early childhood, but then if we just let things drop off and completely ignore our young people, we know that they're going to lose those gains. And so I really appreciate in our city that this is an ecosystem, and we're really working on building an ecosystem. And I think we've got some very interesting things happening. I was just actually at a meeting with Boys and Girls Clubs of America, and they were saying, we're really looking at what you guys are doing in Columbus, your partnerships with the schools, your partnerships with other organizations, your partnership with the city. It's just really interesting to us, and we want more communities to be like this. But certainly, we couldn't do any of this work without the partnership of the city and all of their entities.
Brenda?
Mine is with Capital Kids. What is Capital Kids? It's one of the best in the country, okay? I can say that, and I feel proud about that. Capital Kids is an enrichment program that started about 17 years ago. It was started by Mayor Coleman, and thanks to Mayor Ginther, we continue support. We still continue to be a service to the community. We are with the City of Columbus Recreation and Parks Department under Youth and Family Development. We serve grades K through 5. There are 4 sites that are located in the recreation centers: Beatty, Feddersen, Marion Franklin, and Sullivan Gardens. Our motto is, learning doesn't end when the school bell rings. Participants are involved in structured activities from the time they get there until the time they leave. Those structured activities are after school and during summer camp. I call it tricking the kids into learning because they're having fun and they don't even know they're learning. That's what's fun about it. Our primary model and focus is education through academic assistance, that's homework help, tutoring, reading, and research. Enrichment activities such as Girl Scouts, cooking, YES program, and more and more and more. Prevention units such as anger management, bullying, and really one of the scariest things that today we're facing at young kids is mental health issues. We have recreation and socialization, and one of the benefits of being in the recreation centers, they can learn and play in the same place. Strong family involvement, and I have to piggyback on what the people are saying, is that we talk about education and starting at a young age, but if your parents are not involved, that's where it starts. Learning begins at home. And that's what I see when I am working with the kids, is that if your parent was involved, when you started learning, They are behind already when we start in kindergarten, so we see a lot of that. Strong family involvement as getting the parents involved. We need you, your kids need you more than anything else. Your presence makes a difference. Nutritious snacks, we feed them snacks, but we also cook them meals all the time. Life skills. Life skills talks about life. Anything that happens in life, we talk about it at our centers. Death and dying, bullying, self-esteem, believing in oneself, loving oneself, saying I love you, and the kid don't look at you like, life skills says love does really matter. And it's all about making a difference in a kid's life at Capital Kids.
Thank you. Steve?
So at the YMCA, we do have a couple of gyms and some swimming pools, but primarily when it comes to youth development work and early childhood development, we know that there's a few core principles, and these are at the foundation of everything we do. First is compassionate love. We know that young people need to know that they are loved and loved unconditionally, period. And so whatever we do, if that shows up in the middle of it, we feel like we've been successful. We also know that young people need to learn what it means to be an achiever. So achievement is a core principle of the work that we do too. So young people overcoming obstacles, learning new things, understanding that they can achieve is a great foundation of their development. We also know that relationships matter. And so young people learning how to be in relationship with each other and have other people care about being in relationship with them sets a foundation for a future that matters for them and matters for our community. And quite frankly, I think makes a difference in terms of choices and decisions they'll make later on in their life. And finally, belonging. So with compassionate love at the foundation, the other things in the middle, and at the end, young people knowing they belong somewhere. So the membership model of the Y, you get a card, you belong. That matters. But you also, people are there that care about you and going to show up for you. So all of this shows up in the ways you would imagine. Swimming lessons and youth programs and early childhood development and after-school programs, about 4,000 youth that we serve each day throughout the community in over 70 different sites between school-age childcare and preschool. It's a lot. And so we try to get our hands around the fact that, okay, that might mean something. What matters most is what happens for those young people while they're with us. So we focus on those core outcomes, if you will, for what happens for young people and as they experience each other and us in our programs.
Thank you. So here we are right next door to the Linden Early Childhood Center. Great, first of the kind center here in Columbus. And Jane, just last year, we asked you to lead the charge, engage the community in the neighborhood on the hilltop where, for whatever reason, we had some of our lowest enrollment of young people in high-quality pre-K. What did we learn? Does it make sense to take the model here and having, in partnership with the school district, other providers, the city, it's a place where professional development takes place and other great work and engagement with parents. It really is become a community center, particularly for parents with young children. What have we learned from the Hilltop Early Childhood Partnership? Talk to us about that process and the recommendations and where we go from here.
I'd like to give a shout out to those. I see many of my friends that became very good friends as we lived together for a year with this partnership study. So could you please stand up and we could just recognize the service that you gave, not only to the Hilltop, but to the city. So if the Hilltop Early Childhood Partnership team members would please stand up, join me in giving them a round of applause as thanks. So we spent a lot of time listening to residents of the Hilltop. We knew that, I'm an educator, I'm a trained educator, I have a lot of years of experience. So in my mind, I thought I knew plenty of what ways we could encourage parents and children to engage in this early learning process by drinking a lot of coffee and sitting in a lot of front porches, we learned additional things. And there are many ways to reach our children. But I think we have to acknowledge that there are barriers to our children becoming enrolled in quality, in preschool, in high quality preschool. And I think we need to address those because that then puts a framework around our discussions. And I think it's easiest and they're two simple words, but they're quite profound in their influence and what keeps our children from early learning, and that is life stressors. And by that I mean earning a living wage. I mean enjoying stable housing. I mean having access to quality health care. Those things are critical to a child's well-being. We've heard talk about loving and belonging and caring. Those things add dimensions, important foundational pieces into a youngster's life. I may live in a neighborhood and want to send my child to preschool, but I don't even know where it is. And I don't know how to find out where that is. And I might find out that it's next door. Hoo-hoo, that would be great. But it might be a distance, which brings up another life stressor, transportation. Access to reliable transportation is a barrier to enrolling our children in programs that will change their lives. Culture. Culture is a big deal. We've talked about the melting pot that Columbus is, and I mean nothing disparaging about this remark, but some cultures, it's customary to send your child away from your home to go to someone else to hang around all day and play and learn and be nurtured and grown. But in other cultures, that's very foreign thought. So just an awareness that this is an important thing to consider for children. And then the one that was the most prominent point that we learned from our Hilltop study is that of safety. Safety. When you consider the statistics, and
Sure.
I applaud you, we applaud you for your trying to get ahead of this challenge in our community. But your most prized possession is your child. And when there's not good things happening on the street, the last thing you want to do is send them out the door to go to a school. So it's a multifaceted, very important discussion we have to have as a community to really confront those life stressors and then collaborate with our partners to address them to bring about the greater good.
So Candace, what have you learned already at the Linden PreK Center? You all are at capacity, I think, continuing to grow. The demand is there. What have you learned from working with and serving the families of Linden?
I think really the most important thing I can tell you is that I spent 16 years as a principal on the south side of Columbus. And until that moment when I realized this was something I might really be interested in and had talked to colleagues, that's where I saw myself in my career. I've been with the district 23 years, and I had been 16 years on the south side. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have relationships. I've built all these friendships with people and auntie and bubby, and you just call and grandma comes and Nana and whoever. And I thought, wow, I don't know anyone. I can't begin to tell you, and I'm going to get weirdly like teary, but the people around our school adopted us, took ownership of our building, the safety of our building, the safety of our staff and our kids. I mean, we have people call us and say, hey, the tap to your sandbox blew over on Saturday. I brought it over. I'll run it over on Monday when you guys get back in, because you're a caring community. And I really feel like it was very easy to come into the community and really feel like just good people in a good place. And it's very nice to be here. So I do appreciate the opportunity. It's been great.
Great. So, Steve, you have the Y really focusing on building more childcare capacity, particularly in Linden, and working with local providers to help develop that capacity. Tell me a little bit about that strategy, about working with existing providers, and I'll probably ask somebody to talk a little bit about step up to quality, because there are providers and then there are higher quality providers, and how step up to quality. I'll have somebody who knows a lot more about this than me explain what that means and the work that's out there that has to take place. But can you talk a little bit about the building capacity work the Y is partnering with and doing in Linden?
Well, first of all, we're very clear we can't do everything, and that this is a community where collaboration matters, where we play nice in the sandbox, and we also try to build some collective impact. And so as we started imagining how we would engage in addressing the issues of early childhood education in the Linden area, we recognized that there are a lot of existing providers, some of them in a home, some of them in centers, and likewise. And we thought the best contribution we could make would be to work through some other partners with some funding that we were fortunate enough to receive through Battelle, to be able to make a significant investment into their ability to be able to get to the levels of star rating so that they can get a higher rate of billing for their kids that they're serving to become more sustainable. So we thought, here's a way that we can use what we know, what we do well in our own centers, translate it to others, and be supportive and additive to what is already happening and not need to be duplicative in any way. So it's been fun to head down that path. We've had a number of teachers that we've helped get the certification training and get elevated to a different level. Our friends at Action for Children have been wonderful partners in bringing their expertise to the table through our partnership to help make that happen. And our staff that have been boots on the ground in the Linden area have done a great job of creating relationships and this trust to let the Y in. We're only here to help. We're not here to take anything away from you. We're here to help you be more successful, because the best thing that can happen for us is the existing businesses that are here continue to thrive for the good of the community, but also for the local connection that happens with young people and the citizens that are here serving them.
So has the Y always been involved in this child care and capacity building space? I mean, I know I continue to hear from families out there what great need there is for high-quality, affordable child care for working parents, but also the impact we know it has on the lives of young people.
I think we've been involved in it for a long time, but our one approach has been to build more centers or add capacity and do it, because that's just what we've known. So this is a new foray for us, which we're very excited about, and we're learning a lot about what it means to become part of a community, not to be leading from the front, but to be supporting and leading from the middle. And I think it's a great step in the right direction for our organization to make sure that the assets, the people assets, the capacity we have in technological expertise, and also our brand presence and resources we can get from others, to put them to use with and through others to build them up. So that is a newish thing for us, and we're very proud of it, and happy that the community has welcomed us and embraced us and provided us with the opportunity to be a part of the solution along with everybody else.
So who wants to take a crack at Step Up to Quality and talking a little bit about that?
I'm happy to.
Yeah.
I think we all could.
Yeah.
So chime in, team, all right? I'll get us started.
Folks who may have heard about it or know
So I'll explain a
the
little bit
impact.
about what it is,
Yeah.
and then why not everybody has it. How about that?
Yeah.
That might be helpful. So in the state of Ohio, Mayor Ginther indicated that we have a Step Up to Quality rating system, and there's stars. You're a 0-star, 1-star, 2-star, up to 5-star school or center. And each of those stars carry with them standards that have to be attained to then be awarded the star for your school. These standards exceed licensing regulations and requirements. So you do what you have to do to become licensed, and then you start ratcheting it up, okay? And each star that you shoot for the stars, I knew she'd laugh. I could count on one. Carry with them more standards. And these standards are not just made up. They're based in national research that says if you do these things, you improve the outcomes for your children. All right? So there's the star thing, which sounds like, well, why wouldn't we all go get stars? And we all have the heart to do it. I think that's important to acknowledge. We all want stars. But with the attainment of stars come challenges. And I'm going to explain the first one. I established a preschool, Hilltop Preschool, and it's a 5-star preschool, which is really a big deal, and you can clap on that one. Okay. But if you're a director of a early learning center and you're running payroll and you're meeting the children at the door and someone gets a bloody nose and you have to have activities ready and then a teacher gets sick and, oh, by the way, there's all these things you have to do to get your standards and you have to prove. You can't just say, I have these things, you prove it. So, for instance, at Hilltop Preschool, a 5-star high quality learning center, I am not exaggerating, I'm being quite truthful. The stack of paperwork, documentation that we turned in to prove that we were a 5-star school is this high. I am not exaggerating. It's a big deal to have 5 stars by your name, and you can't just say, I want it, you gotta work hard for it. So, if you're in a small place and you're running the show and you have to do this other stuff, that's cumbersome. So the paperwork is onerous, and that gets in the way of some centers becoming star quality rated. There's confusion. It's a lot of standards, and with it come a lot of rules and regulations. So on top of running the urgency of a place, you always have more and more and more and more and more you need to do, and it gets confusing. Bright people, it gets confusing. And then the third thing that we really need, I'm sorry, I will give up the mic, but the third thing that I think it's really important to note is with the star ranking system comes monetary challenges. It costs money because you have to have certain curriculum. Our curriculum requires materials. You want to have family engagement. We talked about the importance of that. That's got to be part of your program if you want to be a 5-star school. And you have to have, your staff has to be degreed. And so hats off to Columbus State for helping us get to that threshold of our teachers who are with our youngest and most impressionable future citizens. They're going to be providing care for us in this room. Of course we want them to be degreed. So now we're asking someone who works with young children all day long, and I'm telling you what, if you have one child, multiply that, and imagine how exhausted a teacher is by the end of the day, and you're going to go to school at night and get up early the next morning to do another good work. Well, then our teachers get their degrees. Well, with that, does that not come with an increase in pay? So you see how this, it sounds simple. Well, go get your stars. Well, there's a lot going on in there. So is it important? Yes. Is there room for us to work together and collaborate as a community to get the job done for our little kids who need our voices? Yes. And I'm assuming you're all going to sign up before you leave, because that's why you're here, because you care, right? So we're taking names at the door.
So Brenda, Melissa, others, feel free to chime in. Great services, great offerings, challenges with awareness, education. How do we engage parents and families? What are you doing that you're finding success with to kind of help with that credibility gap that folks might have? You know, as we talked about, you know, our most prized possessions, turning them over to someone else and making that leap. How do you go about parental and family engagement with success?
So for us, it is all about the directors at our club levels. Those folks are the most important position in our organization. They have the hardest job because they're doing so much. They're talking to kids, they're talking to parents, they're managing staff, they're managing a facility. But when the club director is really great, that's when you see high levels of parent engagement, because they trust that that director is going to run a safe club. And I know it's the same at rec centers, and I know it's the same at YMCAs. They trust that that director is going to make sure that it's an environment built on respect. They trust that person is there working for their child, loving their child, and involved in the community. So honestly, I mean, parent engagement, a lot of times I get asked, what programs do you have for parents? And it's really not about that at all. It's the relationships. It is the talent that we have on the front lines in the clubs. And that's what builds parent engagement. And then at the end of the day, that's what makes parents feel comfortable you know, allowing their kids to go to the clubs. 65% of our club members, and we serve just under 6,000 youth here in Columbus each year, and 65% of them say that the club is where they feel safest in their community. And so we're really proud of that, but we also have a responsibility and we have an opportunity to make sure that we are helping to cultivate more spaces like that throughout our community.
Melissa?
I would have to say, with Starting Point, my grandparents actually opened up the building. My grandfather laid the bricks at the school. And I grew up next door in a little house to the school. So I was seeing it every day. I walked to school, to the high school down the street. And so it's been really important for us to maintain that relationship in our community. We're really close to our families in our community, and they know that. We take part in the Civic Association of South Marion Franklin Civic Association. We partner with the Recs and Parks down the street from us. And so really being there with the parents, word of mouth, we are seeing our children that attended the school bring their children back because they remember being there and what a culture we have as far as making it a school family. That's actually what we call it, it's the Starting Point School Family. And we do everything we can to build our school family and also extend that to others. We want everybody to be a part of the family. And so even when it comes to a lot of, I think somebody mentioned that a lot of our families may want their child to stay home with grandma. So we invite grandma in. We encourage her to bring, come in so when they get used to it, then they know, okay, I can drop them off for preschool and then go home and then come back and get them. Or I can volunteer for the day and enjoy my experience as well. We also partner with other programs, child care centers in our community for teacher training and mentoring. So that's been a very important aspect of bringing the community in and partnering with other organizations to provide resources for our families.
So it's more than just offering more spots. It's not just about increasing capacity, but raising quality and building capacity of our existing teachers at the same time.
And I do want to mention, I want to thank, we even hire people from our community, from high school, or from mothers and daughters, and they'll come in and work in our program, and they've participated in the Columbus State and the bachelor's program. So how strengthening is that they can work in their community, go to school, and then earn a higher wage eventually.
If there are any questions, I want to make sure I remind everybody those question cards, if you have those. I could talk all night about this stuff, but if you have questions, I want to make sure we get to those, and folks that might be watching live stream. But Brenda, share some of your success, some of the, we always talk about the Columbus way, the way partnerships and collaboration works, and I would argue the Capital Kids does it better than anybody. So talk a little bit about parental family engagement, but then also collaboration.
One of the things that's important to me in our sites, we are required to have parent involvement. So that means for me, it's talking to the parents when they pick up their children, observing their children and said, you might want to check this out. I'm in the schools every day. I get information from the teachers and from the principal, and they're telling me about this child, so I in turn and that link to tell the parents, you might want to check on your child, or this is going on. I'm the link that says, I will sit in on your IAT or an IEP, and what those are is just testing about behavior as well as their learning skills. And so I take the time to go sit in, because a lot of times, I'm on the west side, so some of the parents don't have the knowledge, and they'll sit there and they'll shake their head, and I said, do you understand what they're saying to you? I'm also a parent surrogate, so I can make sure I'm learning more about how we can help the parents. Because a lot of times, like I said earlier, parents need to be involved. That's so important, and that's what the kids need, a parent who is involved, a grandma who's involved, a community that's involved. Parents realize that you are the link that's going to make a difference in their child's learning, and so that's something that's important to us, special events. We have a parent day, we have open house. Anything I can get them in, a newsletter that I may send out, or like I said, I'll call a parent and says, can we have a conversation about your child because I'm observing this, just so that we can make sure that child's on the right path. I have some brilliant kids in there, so I tell the parents, lottery's open time for you to put your application for your child to get in this school because it's opportunity, again, for their kids who are brilliant can get in there. I call them my kids geniuses, just so you know. The other thing is that our success is from collaborations with, we have over 40 collaborations with the community. And those are, is the success is that they come in sometimes, they talk about careers. They come in and they talk about opportunities. They come in and they instill good things. After Capital Kids, which is K through 5, there's a middle school program called City Leaders for middle school kids from 6 to 8. That happens for about 9 months out of the year. The applications usually come out in June or July, kind of like FYI, that for kids to do that experience, and they get to know the city leaders. They get to know the people in the community of Columbus. So that's what's really important. But the successful way that I will tell you is the greatest blessing is they come back. Oh my goodness, they come back and they come back. The kids, the participants, the parents, the grandparents. I am now taking some of the kids of the Capital Kids. You know, so that is what really is amazing to see that this program had that kind of an impact that it'll last a lifetime. The other thing about the success is that the children will leave there, they will leave the program. I'm looking at my thing, so I will make sure I don't miss my notes to tell you everything I gotta tell you right quick, okay? Listen to me. But when the kids, the success, the high schoolers come back to do community service in terms of, you know, they have required to do graduation. I get them every summer all the time. The happy success is they volunteer, they learn. They're serving children again. They leave with a sense of value in education, because that's my obsession is education. If you don't have homework, get a book. You don't have a choice, get a book. So they know importance of reading. My motto for them in reading, if you don't know how to read, you walk around blind. And during the summer, I blindfold them and have them walk around and say, this is what it feels like if you don't know how to read. So they understand. A sense of responsibility to self and community, social skills, self-esteem, most importantly, to dream and to hope beyond the block. Because most of the kids, this is their neighborhood and this is their block. And most importantly, I would say, if you fall off that bike and you want that bike, get back up and ride it again, and they know that they matter. That's what's important.
I'm going to start with some questions. Are we at the time for questions about now? But I want Steve and Rebecca to give some thoughts specifically to what's working in the after-school and summer camp space. And by summer camp, I think you know what I mean, you know, summer programming, and what could we be doing better? What are some successes in this community? You said 11 centers, I think, Rebecca. My guess is you probably needed in 100. So what's the future of after school and summer look like in this community? But I want to get to, so be thinking about that. Okay. But our first question is from Facebook Live from Christy, I think it's Linkies. What would you envision partnerships with OSU to be, such as the Schoenbaum Family Center? I'm not sure if she's an OSU employee and want to get them on the hook, or offering up President Drake and the rest of the family. I know we talked a little bit about some of the partnerships, the pipeline partnership that we're working with Ohio State on. But are there other resources that you can think of that the Ohio State University could bring both in early childhood and for youth development?
I could say that at Hilltop, I will say, at Hilltop Preschool, we invite students from the Ohio State University to our school for many reasons. We are a safe haven in a pretty challenging neighborhood. And most of my children far exceed the federal levels of poverty. And I want to open the eyes. I want to give the opportunity for students, undergraduate and graduate students, to come and taste and see that people are people are people. That we all have hearts, we all have dreams, and it doesn't matter where we fall out on this whole socioeconomic scale. And so I want to give that gift to them, but it makes us better too, because they bring their skills and their experiences into our world, and we all are sharper at the end of the day. We invite graduate students, actually. They work in our school. One of the innovative things we're doing is we're trying to improve the literacy rate of our children, and we have graduate students in the speech, language, and hearing clinic come and work with our students on their literacy skills through speech. So it's really kind of innovative, and we're finding that it's working. So we're doing some research with our children, with our families, and with the Research Institute to try to create other pathways to help our children be successful and influence future generations and other institutions of higher learning. So that's a way.
I'd like to add on to that, we have partnerships. Like I said, we have over 40 partnerships. The Ohio State University's medical students come over and they do a 5210 about healthy eating and fitness. And it's wonderful. It's the medical students that come there. So another piece of our success is through them.
That's great.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Melissa.
I partner with Ohio State, and they do an amazing job. I feel like their teacher training, their resources, we're able to benefit from them in our community. I will say maybe a little bit more of the arts and technology. If their students want to come over and help out with that, I think that would be amazing.
So I do think it's important, you know, we're talking about Ohio State, and that's obviously a very large institution, but we have a great ecosystem of higher education in this community that has to be called out. And so from, you know, employees that we have, we really look to Columbus State, to Capital, to Otterbein, to Ohio State, you know, to all of those institutions to, you know, hire young people and more experienced professionals to work with us. Volunteerism is really critical. And I would say almost every single week we have club kids going to college campuses for different kinds of experiences. And so that is just incredibly enriching, not just for our kids that are club members, but also for students, because we want every opportunity possible for any person in this community, whether you're coming from the wealthiest family or not, to have meaningful relationships with lots of different people. So I think, you know, definitely shout out to the Buckeyes, but I think it's important that we lift all of our institutions
it's something
up.
like 100 or 120,000 young people in the region that are enrolled in some sort of higher education program.
I'll trust your knowledge of that number.
If it's good, you always round up, right? But it is a significant amount in addition to Columbus State, Ohio State, and all the universities around
And
the
people are everything. The number one reason that our kids come back to the clubs every single day, and I know that this is true, this is why parents send their children to an early learning center, it is because of a relationship that they have with a staff person. That development and that learning is happening in our institutions, and they're working really hard on that. So I just can't say that enough, because you know, the challenges that young people in our community face, you know, they're going to need resources, but really they're going to need people at the end of the day to help tackle this.
So we have a question here from Brian Winbush. Would it be possible to incorporate a jobs program into the rec centers? I know that we collectively as a community made probably our largest summer youth employment effort last year in partnership with the county, the city, all the other partners of the community. We have a pretty robust jobs program that I'll follow up with Brian on and have Director Collins talk a little bit about that. But talk about why summer youth employment is so important, not just for kids to make a little bit of money, although that's important. What else summer youth employment does, you know, at the Y. And
we need help.
Yeah.
We need, you know, young people who are ambitious and want to learn, who want to help provide the services we provide. So we ramp up our workforce every summer, And what better way to do it than with young people who are having their first job experience? We believe at the Y that if we can provide a young person with their first work experience, and it's a positive one, and they learn some of those basic skills about showing up on time and accountability and self-awareness and self-control, all those things that help all of us be better citizens and better workforce members, I think it's a huge, huge impact for us.
Well, and you know, the rec centers are, and Director Collins are, I think, are one of our largest summer youth employment providers in the community. We work in partnership with them. I know we were employing 200 teens this summer. A job is probably the best youth development tool for a teen. But we also have some, you know, we've seen in Columbus, but also throughout our state, youth employment rates just plummet. So even though we're seeing really good employment in our community and throughout the state, we are not employing teens as much. But I will say, anytime you talk to a rec center, anytime you talk to a Y, you know, I know every summer we're employing dozens of youth, not just young adults, but teens in our centers. And so, you know, I would say that is happening today, but we need a lot more entities in the city, but also in the private sector and in the nonprofit sector to be willing to open their doors to employ teens. Because, you know, we can't employ every single young person in this community, but there's a lot of for-profit companies that can. So in terms of citizens really helping to boost youth employment, I think it is going to be challenging the private sector, you know, to do more, because I hear a lot from private sector people, oh, we can't find youth that are qualified. Well, in a lot of ways, we're going to have to just take the risk, open our doors, and really teach young people and bring them along the way. It can't all happen in a classroom, and it can't all happen in school buildings. We have to do it together.
Another question here from Matt Martin. There's been a wonderful arc in tonight's conversation, from data, programming, to love and relationships. Now the tough part. We got to be willing to look in the mirror and talk about what gaps exist. What are the biggest gaps in community knowledge, programs, systems, or relationships of support? Where are our greatest opportunities, or within the youth development space, from what's Dr. Harrison talked about, cradle to career? You know, where, you know, focusing and thinking about youth development, where are the greatest opportunities for us as a community? What are we doing well, but most importantly, where do we need to improve? And where are other cities ahead on youth development?
So do you want, sorry, I feel like I've just talked a lot, but I'll take a break. So, you know, where we have some opportunities and some gaps, you know, in my view, in a few areas. First is scale. So we have a lot of great programs in this community, but we're not reaching the scale that we need to get to a tipping point for impact. I would also say teens, and I think some of this has to do with the public funding landscape. There's a lot more dollars available for elementary school age kids, or even up through age 12 or 13. That really dives off a cliff when you start to talk about middle school and high school age kids. Our population in Franklin County is going to grow by 35% over the next 10 years. So we really need to be thinking about how are we just providing more real estate for teens, you know, in public spaces, in private spaces, and in the nonprofit sector. So that's where I think we probably have the biggest gaps. There are some communities, you know, what's interesting in the youth development landscape that are getting to some scale. Milwaukee, for example, you know, is providing a Boys and Girls Club experience to every single student in their public city schools. Where I do think, though, I don't think any community has really tackled scale combined with impact. And that's what I think is our greatest opportunity as a community moving forward. And I love that leaders in this city, the public sector, the private sector, the nonprofit sector, I feel like, especially over the last 2 or 3 years, are really starting to come from a place of yes, you know, when we're thinking about how do we not just have great programs that work, but then how do we scale them?
And if we take that question and go to the early learning platform, we do a great job in the city of Columbus and coming alongside families and with Celebrate One, and we have children, that 46% rate of improvement it was astonishing. That's such a high percentage of growth. And then we have 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, and then we pick them up again when they're 4. So I think there's a gap in the care that we provide or the services that we provide to our 2 and 3-year-old children. And we've talked about the value of relationships. I would love to see, or I would propose that we consider taking those rich relationships that have been established in those home visits and connecting with a new mom, a new family, and not ending it, but somehow keeping that going so that we can build on those solid relationships and that trust that's been established to grow those children and give them more opportunities. And then we can't overlook the whole funding part because all of this is expensive. So there's a revenue stream that somehow.
Which gets to both John and Brian's
that.
question about the future of pre-K in Columbus City Schools. Will the Hilltop pre-K model be successful districts citywide? What can we do to support a pre-K in our community? And then John Ehler's question, investment in early childhood education soars. Early childhood teachers often earn the least.
Exactly.
How can we address this dilemma? 2 minutes or less.
Pay them more.
Pray more.
Yes, honestly. That is, I mean, that's an amazing thing to think about. We just spent how long talking and looking at statistics, and I know, just like my colleagues, we look at the research and we're pouring into studies, and we're talking about how important it is, but yet these are our professionals that are paid the least. So it's absolutely, I don't have a good answer because I know the reality of finances and how we're strapped, but we really have to get to the point where we put the money where our mouth is if we're talking about how important it is and the benefits and those early years and the formative time from 0 to 5. We need to really match that up with, if we say it's important, then we need to show that it's important and have people value that. And the reality is financial, stability is important, so.
So one final question that Pastor Tatum asked, and feel free to chime in there, or Steve, it looked like you wanted to offer something up on the last 2 questions. We talked a little bit about this, but probably across the board, from Melissa's work with early childhood and Candace to Rebecca, Brenda, and Steve in youth development for older kids. How do we get young parents, those younger parents in our community, to understand the importance of them working with their children in the home? And so maybe before they might end up at one of our centers from their earliest days, but also throughout when they're not at the centers and evenings and weekends, those types of things. I know we talked a little bit about it, but any other thoughts for Pastor Tatum?
I was going to say, with our young parents, they don't understand because it's like parents having children again. So that puts you in a whole different place, and it's explaining to them the value because they don't understand it. They're still growing themselves. They haven't attained all the life skills. Teaching them and making them understand the importance of involvement. Involvement is free. Your child's education will continue on and on. It starts at home, and education is not by a teacher. Everyone can teach someone. It's helping them understand the difference they can make in their child. And that's what I think is just we in the village. We are the village. We are the mentors. We are the people that need to take care of them and help them out. A lot of times, not my child, not my problem. And we turn our backs. The village needs to come back together to help each other because our society is in a whole lot of trouble and our babies need help. And every one of you are the ones that's going to make a difference in how they are growing. They really are.
Melissa?
I would have to say we can all agree that there's plenty of information and research about why a parent should be involved. But I think when we're talking to younger families, we're not communicating their language. So we really have to find a way where we are talking to them the way they understand. We have to get on their level. We have to reach them through sources such as social media. We have to take different approaches that may not be your typical ways of getting them the information. Many of our parents don't really know what step up to quality is. And the ones that it affects the most, because we're not speaking their language. So I think that's an important thing that we need to look at and challenge ourselves to communicate to them, know our audience.
Steve, I cut you off. I want to give you the last word before I close this out.
Well, I just wanted to lay on the sword in terms of this whole issue of pay with people. We haven't solved that yet, and it troubles me. If there are things that I lose sleep over, this is one of them. The fact that we've not solved that as our institution, I don't think we've solved that as a community. The bottom line is that until we get a conscience collectively, until we figure out how to pool our resources collectively to be able to figure this thing out and work less independently and more as a collaborative around this, it's probably going to be a conversation we'll have 5 or 10 years or 20 years from now. In the meantime, young people are being served by people who have huge hearts but can't stay there very long, and so there's huge turnover. And it takes all this attention away from us as providers and operators in working with youth to find the next person or train up the next person. And we all know, anybody in business.
And establish the relationships.
Exactly. And we all know, everybody in business knows that continuity of staff doing good work with young people is the difference between sometimes survival or not for our young folks.
For infants or 12th graders, probably. I'd like to thank our panelists again for an enlightening conversation about priorities for a better Columbus that drew us together tonight. I'm grateful for them and their thoughts and perspectives. Our next neighborhood conversation is tomorrow, February 22nd at the King Lincoln Center. We will be covering 2 more important topics: the work of the Columbus Women's Commission and the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. Look forward to the conversation tomorrow and hope you will join us either in person or online. And now for our final benediction, it is my pleasure to introduce Pastor Nikki Hampton from the Fresh Start Worship Center.
Wow, can we give another round of applause for Mayor Ginther, for our panel, all of the presenters? Yeah, let's give it up. This has been an awesome evening of another amazing conversation. I know tomorrow's will be amazing as well. And what great perspective, insight, and enlightenment on how we can create the opportunity city that Columbus really is, and set our communities, our neighborhoods, our children, our families on these amazing trajectories that we talked about tonight. So let's one more time, can we just give another round of applause before we have the benediction? Would you bow your heads with me? Father, how we thank you tonight that you allowed us to come together and engage, truly engage in conversation that can set all of us, administrators, teachers, staff, leaders, city leaders, community leaders, families, children, our pre-K kids, our parks and recs. You have given us such an amazing chance to make this city the stellar city that it is and to set it on a hill, because a city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Its light will shine for all the world to see. And that's what we believe Columbus will be. So we thank you tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
This concludes our program. Thank you for attending the 2018 State of Our City Neighborhood Conversation.